Mary and Reiko both arrived late, bringing the last of the study group to the pool. Sorry, we were late. I didn't realize you would be eating here. Mary was looking forward to. Where did Mary go? Reiko introduced herself. One of the girls has a bunny for a familiar. She got sidetracked. Ella laughed, pointing to where the two had retreated to a table to hold an intense discussion. Candy had finished her challenge, and the loser of the race was sent to get a refill on the drinks while the other two witches openly flirted. While they waited, the gathering naturally broke into smaller groups, with Candy, Asia, and Mary gathering their fluffy familiars at one table and Wolf, Ella, Reiko, and Cassie at the one next to them, along with the small red-scaled lizard that was Reiko's familiar. Unfortunately, these study groups don't usually last long. Reiko sighed. She had said the same thing in different words yesterday, and Wolf wondered if she was a bit lonely already and not looking forward to studying alone. Don't worry. We won't let you escape so easily. You already told us your deepest, darkest secret, Ella told her, referring to the young noble's desire to leave the city. Reiko's face brightened up immediately at that comment while her little lizard, Flame, made a happy squeal and let off a wave of heat. If you don't mind, I'm in. My sisters taught me a lot of things about how to maximize your growth rate, and I'm sure Wolf can handle hanging around the three of us in Flame. It's only the weak familiars who get exhausted from the bonds draw in class. Wolf hadn't realized until now, but Flame was a magical creature and not just a regular lizard as most reptile familiars were. Our practical training involves a lot of spell casting, and the familiars increase our mana collection rate, so we need them there, Ella explained to Wolf. Oh, I don't think we were properly introduced. Good to meet you. I'm Reiko Morgan, the youngest daughter of Coven leader Morgan. Stick with me, and I will be able to teach you lots of random tips and tricks. Waiting on the scheduled classwork to catch up with your progress would just be a waste of our first year. Cassie perked up at the promise of spell training. Most of their classmates really were too far behind her in power at this point since she tested between 3 and 5 times stronger in the Aura exams than the rest of Class A, and many were almost as far behind in knowledge, so it would help ensure that she achieved her goal of crushing them all in the exams and making her grandmother proud. I look forward to your assistance, Cassie answered with a bow that made her brush against Wolf. The spark was there again, despite the fact that Wolf had the protective skill active to hide himself and no mana in his system. He would have to be extra careful about touching random people until he knew what the limits of his ability were. Or perhaps this time, it was from Cassie, who now had an active aura and might not be used to controlling her power yet. Either way, it was rather pleasant. We should do a movie night after this. Group bonding activity, and we can talk about the things that shouldn't be said in public, Reiko suggested, making Risa smirk at her. So you're thinking of things that shouldn't be spoken about in public already, are you? Watch out, Wolf. You're going to end up some Coven Council witch's pet, watching a house full of little witchlings as she attends council meetings. The fourth-year witch joked while Ella and Cassie gave her a dirty look for the joke about someone stealing their familiar. What Reiko actually meant was that she wanted to talk about her plans for this year and what she would do next year, assuming she passed her classes. Graduation and nobility weren't guaranteed things, even for Class A in the second year, as the nobility standard changed constantly based on the relative power level of the existing nobles. In a strong generation like the one Elder Maria was from, even decently powerful witches could fail to make the cut or end up at the very bottom of the nobles' power structure. After seeing the way this generation of witches was shaping up against the standards at the academy, it might be much easier than expected to gain a title, Wolf thought. The loser of the swimming race came back empty-handed, but nobody cared. They were all busy with the new familiars. How much stronger do I need to get to graduate the first year? Cassie asked Reiko while the new pairs celebrated. A lot of it is about the potion and spell knowledge, but if you can pass the exams and get an aura strength of 100, you can qualify as a commoner witch at the final exam, Reiko explained. Oh, that's easy then. I have a great memory for recipes, and I'm already over 100 aura strength. Cassie's revelation shocked Reiko, who had left the assembly early to answer a message from her mother. Anything over 30 when they entered the academy was usually enough for Class A, but having enough aura to pass the exams during the first week was just cheating. While everyone else in the first year struggled to slowly gather the mana to use the spells they were learning, she would be able to do them repeatedly until she had them right. What none of them realized yet was that the same applied to Ella, whose aura strength was skyrocketing after bonding with Wolf, as their relative power levels naturally wanted to equalize. That settles it then. Movie night tonight, and a refresher class tomorrow to get Cassie and Ella up to speed on the first few weeks' materials. Reiko decided. Ella nodded her agreement and got to her feet. Now, into the pool. We have wasted enough time on the deck. What started as a swim turned into a free-for-all as soon as a ball was introduced, and before they knew it, the announcement that dinner was about to be served was playing throughout the school. Everyone, change quickly if you want good seats, Risa announced, throwing a shirt over her head and sliding into shorts, still damp from the pool. A good seat? The cafeteria looked large enough for everyone. Wolf asked. It is, but the inner tables are closely spaced. We smell like sweat and pool, and half the school reeks of overdone perfume and body sprays. The walls are the good tables, Risa explained before slipping her shoes on and running toward the cafeteria. Ladies, shall we? Wolf asked, picking one up in each arm. Oh, this is the way to travel. Mary, you should ask the pup if you can get a ride. Ella laughed. Mary gave her familiar a pleading look as she threw a school uniform dress over her bikini. The so-called pup was easily 200 pounds of fluff and muscle, making it 3 times the tiny witch's size. It reluctantly agreed and led her on, but once the ride turned into a mobile hug as the first year's resident fluff lover settled in, Pup seemed to lose his hesitancy and happily trotted off after the crowd. Wolf set the girls down at the entrance to the student locker room and moved to the staff room, where he left his clothes. Wolf, save us a seat, would you? We will take longer than you to get changed. Ella called from next door as Wolf stuffed his swim trunks in one of the provided mesh laundry bags everyone used to carry their gym gear. Not a problem. I will meet you up there, he called, then jogged out into the hallway. Only one corridor over, he met up with Mary, who had stopped so that Pup could meet another canine familiar. But when he caught up to some of the other girls, it turned into a foot race to the cafeteria. Dang, you're fast. Chasing down a familiar is no joke. The second-place finisher panted, passing Wolf as he went to look for a table. A burning sensation started on his arm, and with it, the sensation of immense demand on his mana. Bonded partners request the use of which magic fast travel. Do you accept? Y/N. Wolf hadn't seen any sort of message like this from his inheritance before. Maybe it was part of the familiar link? He didn't recall the familiars getting a choice, though. But if it was going to be a regular thing, he would have to stop wearing long sleeves, or at least keep his cuffs unbuttoned, or he would never know what the messages were supposed to be. He also didn't know any sort of traveling spell, much less a witch magic one. But if the inheritance was willing to help, or it was part of the familiar bond, he was more than happy to go along with it. I accept. Bring them here, Wolf thought. Wolf rushed to fill his storage capacity as a huge amount of mana was pulled through him to the spot where a magical circle lit up around his feet, filling with smoke. And then suddenly, both Cassie and Ella were there in front of him. Tada! Seats found. Wolf greeted them while the room went silent. What in the world was that? We were trying to summon you back to the locker room to see if the familiar bond was working. Ella asked. See, I thought you didn't want to walk all the way here, so I brought you here instead of me there. It's a good thing you were dressed. Wolf admitted. You forget, I have a demonic imp as a familiar. It is almost as annoying. So boy, what one are you? Demon, fae, or undead? The other, heavier set cook asked Wolf. Why would you think I was one of those 3? Wolf asked. Well, that's about it for things that both look human and can be familiars, so you've pretty much got to be one of the 3. She replied. I suppose I could tell you as a personal favor. Wolf agreed, teasing the woman, who held her hands up in defeat. Never mind. If the answer is fae or demon, I don't want to owe you a favor. And if the answer is neither of those, I really don't want to owe you a favor. She laughed. A witch's word was said to be her bond, and they could easily capture a promise or favor in a spell to force compliance later. It was one of the first things Uncle Ivan warned Wolf about when he was a little kid, watching what he promised them. Even a casual conversation with the authorities could be used to magically force compliance and make you turn on your people. Back up a bit. How did you even do that? Cassie asked. You tried to summon me. I thought it was better to bring you here. And then there was a summoning circle? Wolf phrased it as a question. I heard that demons can use traveling magic fairly freely. Even some of the lesser imps can do it. Are you sure this isn't a duplicate of the real Wolf? Someone asked. There is an easy way to test. Just ask him something from before the summoning, something only the real one would know. Another student suggested. Wolf leaned in close to Cassie's ear and whispered, "The first time we created an amulet, you passed out in my bed. The second time we made the one you're wearing around your neck. That made her blush bright red, and she began to nod rapidly. Yes, this is the real Wolf. Or at least he has all the memories. Ella was smirking at Cassie's blush, but Wolf wasn't about to out anyone's secrets, so he just led the two to an open table and went to get the food. The cafeteria worker handed him a tray with 4 orders of the special on it, as well as a small dish of raw meat, and made a gesture toward where Reiko had just made it to the cafeteria. "What happened? You were summoning Wolf, and then you vanished?" She panted. "He thought we wanted to come here. Apparently, there is a choice when you get a humanoid familiar." Ella informed her with an upset look. "Don't be mad. Let me know what you want in advance, and I am sure things will work out better next time," Wolf told her, setting out the plates and passing the raw meat to Flame, Reiko's reptilian familiar. The small, red, armored lizard gave him a distinct thumbs up before digging in, which made Wolf laugh. The creature was more intelligent than he had given it credit for. "I wonder what went wrong. It's supposed to go by your will, not his random guess. He couldn't be strong enough to overpower the bond, could he?" Reiko asked, tapping her fingers on Flame's head as she was deep in thought. "I thought you couldn't break the bond?" Wolf asked. "A familiar can't. Once they have accepted, it's for life. But if they are particularly strong, they can resist parts of it. Or in an extreme case where they are immensely more powerful than the witch who summoned them, they can even attempt to reverse the dynamic at the moment that they're summoned. That's what demons are famous for." Risa explained from across the aisle. "Do you think I could ask them to keep wearing the schoolgirl outfit even if I did that?" Wolf asked, making Risa choke and splutter on her mouth full of soup, and earning him a smack on the back of the head from Ella, who was closest. "Probably. Witches who lose to their demonic familiar usually suffer very bad ends, though. They're usually either killed or dragged to the demon realm. It might be a waste to reverse the contract only to have them do things they were already doing for you," a senior class student pointed out. After dinner, everyone went to shower away the scent of the pool. The school didn't use an overdose of chlorine as the ones in the city did, but it still had a mild chemical smell that the sensitive noses in the academy could detect. Wolf had just gotten out of the shower and grabbed his clothes when he got another message from his inheritance. Wolf had been waiting for this chance. He pulled just his uniform pants on and grabbed his shirt. The world seemed to blur, and Wolf found himself standing in a large dorm room. 2 beds sat on opposite walls, and a couch sat in the middle of the room, facing a magical fireplace with a television above it. "Nice place you've got here." Wolf greeted them while he admired the immaculately clean dorm room and the sight of 2 witches kneeling in front of him in their pajamas. They must have just finished drawing the magical circle on the floor, the one Wolf was standing on. "Sorry about that. I'm not sure if it's possible to aim my arrival." Wolf apologized. "No, you arrived just where we wanted. We thought the problem might be that we didn't have practice, so we used a physical circle this time, and it worked much better." Cassie explained. "Yes, this time, I got a notice that you requested my presence. It's a good thing I had a few seconds to respond. I had just gotten out of the shower." Wolf stepped out of the circle carefully, and Ella placed the rug back over it before moving to sit on the large couch facing the television. Cassie picked the spot at the end, so Wolf moved the ottoman in front of them and sat down in between. "Close contact helps build your aura, right? This is the best way to do that," he explained, and then pulled the witches close to his side. "We have half an hour before Reiko arrives for the movie night, and she's bringing the popcorn. Why don't we build our bond a little first?" Ella suggested, drawing a hint of mana through Wolf and incorporating it into her aura. The witch's aura didn't actually hold mana. It was more like a solar panel for mana, and this exercise increased both the size and efficiency. But it took mana to do, and if they tried to draw mana through their aura, they couldn't enhance it at the same time. So, they needed either a familiar or a magical item to help them with the process. They had company coming, so Wolf placed his arms around their shoulders and let them practice while he relaxed. He had almost dozed off due to the comfortable warmth when there was a knock at the door, and Ella hopped up to get it, her short, light blue hair now fully dry. "Reiko and Mary? That's unexpected. Please, come in." Ella greeted them. "We're roommates." I hope you don't mind the extra presents. The rest of my study group wanted to stay in alone with their familiars. Mary explained. The pup was right behind them, with Flames sitting on his head, eagerly waiting to get into the room. As soon as the girls cleared the door, the fluffy white dog rushed past everyone and lay on the floor in front of the fireplace, giving it an expectant look. Subtle, isn't he? Cassie laughed, grabbing the remote to turn the electric fireplace on. Cool. His tattoo matches your amulet. Mary noticed, poking Wolf on the arm where the Noxus family crest was clearly visible but otherwise ignoring his shirtless attire. Wolf looked down at the family mark, made as a child after he was adopted, to ensure his status as a member of the Noxus family while he fought to earn a better place in life. It had changed from what he recalled now that he looked more closely. The errors in the runes had adjusted, and the damage from years of growth was repaired. If it weren't time-faded, he would think it was brand new again. We're very distantly related, but have the same family name after all. Wolf agreed. How distantly? The tiny witch asked suggestively. I think the last time our families interconnected was 11 generations ago, Cassie told her with a smile, still resting a hand on Wolf's chest to work on her aura. That only made Mary's smile even larger. She was about to speak again when Reiko hugged her from behind, the larger woman's prodigious chest nearly swallowing the smaller witch's head. Go and sit. The snacks are ready. We will talk magic after the first movie, Reiko instructed, much to Mary's annoyance. She wasn't a patient person, and she had good questions circling around her brain right now. The film she picked was a tragic romance, and by the end, there were 4 sobbing witches on the couch. Reiko did her best to hide her emotional state, while Wolf tried his best to console Cassie and Ella without mentioning the ending of the movie and upsetting them even more. It was Pup who had the best luck at that, as he simply flopped himself across Reiko and began to lick Mary's face clean until she laughed. That might not have been the best choice of movie. How about we start on the essential spells? Reiko here practiced a lot before coming to the academy since she missed last year's entry by only a few weeks, Mary suggested. This was the true purpose of the study groups, not to watch movies and bond, but to improve their knowledge. They usually broke up due to conflicting egos, but if they lasted and actually studied, the witches in them usually ended up much better off than their less dedicated peers. Let's start with the basics, then. My mother said every witch needs a storage talisman. She wouldn't send me here with anything. She says it builds character, but I have the circle. Reiko began. I made one myself to give to my grandmother as a gift before I left. They're pretty easy once you know the trick to them. Carve the circle, so your paint doesn't run, and place your choice of reagent on top. You can choose the correct one to use by which one reacts the best when you draw in mana while holding it, Cassie explained. Or if you don't have high-quality reagents like we don't tonight, you draw a bit of blood and use as much mana as you can from your familiar to substitute for the reagent while creating the amulet. For mana collection spells, they are usually the best reagent anyhow. Reiko agreed. That sounded like exactly what Wolf had done with Cassie, though the familiar spell hadn't connected them at the time.